I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing
that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights.
The internet belongs to you.
No one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Hi, this is Penn Gillette, Penn and Teller. Big guy does magic, smaller guy next to me. He does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. I want to talk about Joseph Jaffe is not famous. And Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Joseph Jaffe is wicked not famous. Joseph Jaffe is superlatively not famous, and for good and sufficient reason. I mean, maybe his guests are famous. Maybe his guests are famous. He gets some famous people on his guests, but Joseph Jaffe himself is not famous. That's the important part. You can have famous guests and still not be famous. And if you want an example of that, well, Joseph Jaffe would be a really good example. Teller would do a better job at a talk show, and Teller doesn't talk, which you'd think would be one of the major qualification of being on a talk show and not being famous. What's that, Teller? Oh, yeah. Teller says, Joseph Jaffe, not famous. Love you. Peace.
Woody-hoo!
Woody-hoo! Out here in the stream, as in the streaming era, I fight for my dreams. I get my heart into my living.
You encourage drinking or marijuana use on the show?
I don't need a fight, cause Evelyn's right. Or you could sponsor an emu. I'm Batman.
That's your tweetable moment, folks. That's your tweetable moment. If Mark Zuckerberg makes a metaverse, is that Web3? No, it's Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse.
He's like us. He's flawed.
Just a little segue.
That's some dope shit, dude. That's really, really nice.
Woody-hoo!
Woody-hoo! Let me tell you something. There are not many days in your life that you get to enjoy do-overs, or not even do-overs, reverse do-overs. That sounds a little sexual. It's not meant to be sexual. I have had the pleasure, the privilege of being on Neal Conlon's show, and then he was meant to be on mine, but there was some scheduling snafus, which I think were all on my part, because basically I am the king of Jomu, the joy of messing up. And this man is so special that I just wanted more time with him. So he is on the show shortly. We actually ended up hanging out for about 20 to 30 minutes. And I said to him what I say to all the girls, which is, I wish we were recording this. I was just kidding. But no, I really did say that to him. Not to the girls, but to him. Because, so many magic moments happen when it's not recording, when the record button is not on, and there's really nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you just have to appreciate being in the moment, which is good, but also recognizing that right at the end, at the death of an interview, just when the director says cut, those are when the moments happen, because typically people have let down their guard or just are hanging out and having fun and being casual. And let me tell you, Neal and I have fun all the time. So if you like, this is a double subscription, which is if you like the show, please subscribe, bit.ly/subscribe to the show. But actually, I want you to subscribe to Neal's podcast. I want you to subscribe to everything associated with Neal and to me. But my link is bit.ly/subscribe to the show. And if you really are a masochist and you like inflicting pain on yourself, not only do I do this once a week, but I also do a virtual coffee, audio only, because I'm true to the promise of having a face for radio. And Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a virtual coffee in Clubhouse. As long as it's still around, which we have no idea how long it will be around for. But we do it in Clubhouse and we do it in Discord. And this is the Discord link, discord.gg/alpha collective. We've been having a lot of fun lately. Recently, I went and focused on the 7 biggest mistakes that CEOs made. And then I did a little bit of a chat GPT fun, which is I asked chat, because we are officially on a first name basis now, for another 3. And then I riffed on those 3. So that was a little bit of fun. I also did a session on this idea called intense learning. Intense learning. Well, I mean, maybe you learn from it. Intense listening. The day before I did this session, I was asking people if they wanted to come up onto stage and hang out and ask me questions, and no one did. And then eventually someone said, I'm listening intensely. That's why I'm not coming on stage. And then I thought to myself, that's interesting, because I know what active listening is, but what about intense listening? So I actually went again to chat and I said, hey, chat, I've invented a new term. It's called intense listening. It's an evolution of active listening. In fact, I even created a framework and I said, well, there is this idea of hearing, and then there's listening, and then there's active listening. But now there's something called intense listening. What do you think it is? How would you define it? What are the characteristics of intense listening? And I didn't look at the answer. I did the whole session, and then I went and compared what I came up with what the AI bot came up with. And it was eerily similar, which basically shows you that I am artificially intelligent, emphasis on the word artificial. But in all seriousness, it actually shows you the power of a prompt. When you brief someone, whether they are human or machine, based on the strength, the focus, the singularity, the simplicity of the brief, you can actually end up with something quite special. Now, if you don't like hanging out live 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, you can also subscribe to the podcast version of it. We call that the Collective Cafe to Go, and you can subscribe via bit.ly/Collective Cafe to Go. So you can have just a little bit more Jaffe Juice with you during the week and during your week. And in all seriousness, I do hope it educates, it informs, it inspires you to create and continue to, pick up the baton and move it forward. Well, now it's time for our seated soliloquy. And as always, the seated soliloquy is somewhat and somehow connected to my guest. Actually, this one is a little bit less so directly to my guest, but it's something that I want to get his opinion on. It's called Enter the Danger. Now, Enter the Danger is actually a term that I found out about through EOS, through the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And what it refers to is this idea of when you enter the danger, and oftentimes you announce it. You actually get permission. You say in a leadership meeting or one-on-one, is it okay if I enter the danger? And really what that means is we're going to let our guards down. We're going to be honest and open. We're going to be transparent. We're going to be vulnerable. We're going to call it like we see it or call it like it is. We're not necessarily going to be mean or harmful or tactless, but we are going to be direct. We are going to be honest. No more passive aggressiveness, but in that is replaced, I guess, with this idea of just saying, hey, this is what is on my mind or in my heart. Now, the other day I was in a session, in a pod session, in a cohort session, and I was talking as I do and often do, and I was talking too much again as I do and often do. And one of the pod members said to me, Joe, this is just meant to be quick and short and sweet. This isn't meant to be a whole discussion. and he essentially cut me off. Now, it was the second time he had done it in the space of about a week or 2 weeks. And I was having a bad day, and I wasn't on top of my game. And I basically said, look, I'm going to enter the danger and just tell you, I don't need you to tell me that I'm too verbose, that I'm too obtuse, that I talk too much. I get it. I know this is one of my weaknesses. I get it enough at home, and I don't need to be told this now in the pod. And he said, okay, I hear you. Understood. I didn't mean to, upset you. And I mentioned the phrase "into the danger." But here's the thing: I felt awful afterwards. And oftentimes, when we were told not to burn bridges, I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel good. And so I suddenly felt like I needed to compensate. And then I boosted him and I praised him and I kind of, tried to soften it as well. And to his strength and to his credit, he got it. He understood it. We entered the danger together. He understood that I was having a bad day, coming not from the best place. But I guess my point today is, you enter the danger, and then so what? And then what happens? And then what next? And then, how do you respond after you enter the danger? And how do you stay the course without backtracking, without pulling back? It's hard. I don't necessarily have an answer for you, but I have a feeling that Neal might have an answer for you in terms of this concept of entering the danger. But there's going to be no danger as well. In fact, forget about fun facts. It's now time to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Neal Conlon. I'm going to read to you his bio, which is set in first person, and I like it this way. I was born and raised in New York City and thrived in its ethos of diversity. New York City was my first school of hard knocks. It created a deep interest in understanding humans from all walks of life. As I grew into a young man, I felt lost and broken within. I believed enlisting in the U.S. Marines was the medicine I needed at the time. The Marines instilled discipline, leadership principles, situational awareness, and provided me with brotherhood. Although it prepared me for life in so many ways, I could still feel something was missing. After leaving the Marines, my ego chased status and success in some of the world's most powerful companies. I rose above the ranks and went on to achieve all my goals, except doing so did not feel right. Something was still missing. Compelled to end my suffering, I committed to my healing by incorporating disciplinary practices and tools to heal myself and find the answers I was seeking. I pressed forward past the adversity in my life to go on to live the life of my dreams. It is now my mission to awaken others to the knowledge and power within each one of us to live a meaningful life. Once we press forward, we're able to align with our purpose and access the medicine within all of us. There is a lot to unpack there. Let's unpack it with Neal Conlon. Neal, welcome to the show. Finally.
Yeah, man. Great to be here with you. Very much appreciate the flexibility here and love the intro. Thanks.
All right. So I am ready to press forward. I already have questions. We'll come back to the idea of the danger afterwards if there's time. But you talk about medicine. So are we talking about psychedelics here, or are we talking about a different type of medicine?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a huge advocate for plant medicine. I think it's a very interesting time in our world about how this whole being reevaluated and the access to it. The first time I heard this quote, I don't know who exactly said it. But someone said to me, spending a weekend with plant medicine is like doing 10,000 hours of therapy, in a weekend. And that's a really good value proposition.
I'll say.
And I will say that it has been a catalyst. But lots of times now, on kind of the other side of a lot of the work that I do and kind of a lot of my own introspective stuff I've done on my own, there is so much medicine in good sleep. There's so much good medicine in getting out in nature. There's so much good medicine in sex. There's so much good medicine in good food, healthy food. And many times when I have people who get referred to me or come into me and they say, "Hey, I'm feeling stuck. I feel like the world is dangerous. I feel broken. I feel like I need to get fixed." 90% of the time, the first kind of couple questions I'm going to ask people are, what's your diet like? What's your sleep routine like? What's your water intake like? When was the last time you were out in nature? And what's your social circle like? And a lot of times I will really say, before you even get into the world of coaching or working through your quote unquote problems, let's work on like leveling out the playing field there a little bit. Eat healthier, get better sleep, drink more water, spend some time with your friends, get out in nature. And those are all forms of medicine that you start to realize that because we live in such a digital world now, we don't spend enough time in those 5 places. And most of the time, if I say to somebody, do those 5 things more for about 2 weeks and then come back to me, let's talk about your problem. Usually that problem is minimized by about 50% when you come back after doing that.
It's funny because how many coaches does it take to screw in a light bulb? I don't know the answer. Maybe ChatGPT can help us with a whole bunch of one-liners. But I suppose when 2 coaches are talking to one another, we can't help but want to coach or analyze whatever. But I love this beautiful juxtaposition even in that bio, because the old school way of looking at it is take your medicine, right? When we think of the parochial, hierarchical, even maybe the way our parents or fathers fathers, when we take your medicine, and medicine generally didn't taste good and it was external. But you talk about this idea of medicine within, that you have this healing property, or you have this healing, whether it's liquid or energy inside you. And I think that differentiation is a very powerful one. I just wanted to point it out because it does demonstrate, especially when we talk about mental fitness and mental health, how far we've come, and also kind of how far, or at least the direction that we're traveling in.
Yeah, exactly. And it took me a very long time to like really process what that was like. And I think a lot of times in this world we live in now, especially the entrepreneurial world, the business world, even just the family world, I think there's this interesting evolution that's kind of happened over the past couple of years where we all want all the things. We want the successful business. We want the successful family. We want the successful entrepreneurial life. We want the big viral social media thing. And I got in my own life some of those things before I was ready for them. And the thing that's interesting is we all want these things, but I had to really ask myself when things didn't end up the way that I thought that they would. When I built this interesting business years ago that became really successful really quickly, and then I put it in the ground because I wasn't prepared for that type of success at that point. I had gotten married at an early age and started a family, but didn't have a good example of a foundation of a family like I wanted. And I kind of blew that one up too. And I went through a couple of like really big fumbles. And like lots of people do, I blame myself. I said I wasn't good enough. I said I was at fault. It was my problem. I needed to be fixed. I wasn't good enough, all these different things. And then it took like that inner work to be like, well, you weren't ready for that. And it's just like studying for a test, like it's just like learning about something new before you do it. Like you couldn't, like, you're an EOS coach now, and you couldn't just like grab the book look at it real quickly and then put yourself out into the world and then be like, I'm an EOS coach, you could probably get clients that way. But then when you showed up and it didn't land well,
I wasn't ready.
You weren't ready.
I wasn't ready. I was today years old when I was ready. And it's an amazing feeling when that happens to you. Even you know, when people are watching this, it will be, you know, sometime in the future. Maybe the machines will have taken over. Maybe the aliens will have landed. But when I actually did my very first focus day, there was another one that was scheduled potentially for 2 days prior, and it didn't pan out. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for my first session day to be 2 days prior than the actual one, because that one was how it was meant to be. They were the right client. They were my first client. It just worked out beautifully well. And when I look back, I'm grateful. I'm actually so grateful that even within a 48-hour window, it didn't end. It would have been too soon. That's a crazy realization when you realize it. It's scary, actually, to think like, oh my God, what would have happened had I done that second one first? But I just have faith that the path is the path.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I've gone down some like really interesting research rabbit holes around. Initially it was plant medicine, but then it was just kind of this word medicine. And, you know, in Western society, we have this kind of concept that's been around for about 100 years, maybe a little bit longer, right? That when something is wrong with us, right, we take 2 pills and that will make it better. And in a lot of the kind of, you know, let's call it ancient tenets or ancient tribal practices, you know, the medicine was more of like a preparation sequence. It was more of getting prepared to go do something and being, you know, being able, you know, being capable and knowing that you're capable of it. So there's all these different types of practices and, you know, ceremonies and sacredness to things. But a lot of those words were really meant about, you know, are you prepared for, you know, what's coming up next? And I think, you know, just to hit on your, you know, stepping into the danger piece for a quick second, you know, I think I'm going to look at this completely different because I was in the U.S. military, but like, you know, we live in this world where most people, for the most part, you know, have in the United States, have food, have water, they have a roof over their head. Their electricity is going to turn on, their Wi-Fi is going to turn on, their phone is going to work tomorrow. And so we really don't have a lot of danger like day to day. And it's actually like a problem because our nervous systems are really built, you know, to experience some form of fight or flight. And we really don't have those anymore. And so without having kind of real dangerous things coming at us, and this is like helpful for people who go through these crazy scenarios. It's like without having a really dangerous scenario, your mind, if left alone without danger in front of it long enough, will start to create its own dangerous scenario because it needs to have that nervous system reaction to be like, oh my God, what happens if so-and-so doesn't like me? Or what happens if I get fired from work? Or what happens if the business fails? And none of these things are really that dangerous, but yet we will create them on our own.
Well, I mean, I'm getting goosebumpy because you're basically, I'm pretty sure goosebumpy is not a real word. Speaking of word salad or word medicine, you're basically saying we need more danger. But we need the real danger. We need the danger that keeps us on our toes. We need the danger that is natural and normal. We need danger that keeps us alive or makes us feel alive. And I think what you're saying is that anxiety is the presence. The presence of anxiety is due to the lack of danger, and the body's almost need to kind of create that shock to the system. There's something very interesting in what you're saying.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work I have a big body of work built upon some of these concepts around this mental fitness concept, which is a big piece of, where I work these days. And if you think about it, right, all of our emotions, we need them, every single one. There's not one that's there by accident. And so, anxiousness, right, is one of the ones that we need. And a lot of people, feel anxious and nervous. But, a couple thousand years ago, if you were sitting with your tribe and you felt something in the wind changed, the weather changed, it might be time for the tribe to pick up because the season was changing, or it might be time to grow a new crop, or it might be time to go hunting, because we're running low on food. And now, because we don't have that kind of intuition or access to that part of our bodies, or do we move around like that anymore, that emotion needs something to do. And you're spot on, because that's one of the things that I've kind of focused on for the past couple of years. There's a lot of people really starting to focus on it now. Is we need to relearn how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, within safe conditions. And last March, in one of the retreats that we held, we took a group of guys 34 miles offshore, to, they couldn't see land, for 3 days and 3 nights on this rig platform that's out there, called the Frying Pan. And, it was super uncomfortable for all of us. I was super uncomfortable with it. But I tell you what, if you have to have a hard conversation with your partner, you have to have a hard conversation with your children, you have to have a hard business conversation, you got to go back to your family and have a conversation about how your feelings were hurt or you're sorry about something. You go and do something that's a little bit dangerous and realize that you're going to be okay afterwards. Those conversations get a whole lot easier.
So you're saying to me that I entered the danger. In this particular case, I said, I'm feeling this claustrophobic feeling, but also this feeling of saying, I don't need this in my life. I know it's a weakness. It's a sore point, and I'm feeling very vulnerable and very, and very well. I mean, I wasn't feeling great about myself. I took it out on someone. I did say, caveat, I'm entering the danger. And then I felt uncomfortable. But I didn't feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable. He, to his credit, I think did. And I feel like, in a way, Neal, the missing piece here, I'm probably talking too much again now in a little voice, that is setting those ground rules. That's the key. The key is ground rules, because once you've set the rules and the rules of engagement, then then it's just like, have fun, everyone. Just let it all hang out. So it's the ground rules, no?
Well, there's two pieces to it. The first piece is, it's very interesting that we live in a world right now where acceptance is so important that we have to diatribe into these weird conversations. We have to say, hey, before I say something, I'm going to say something about the thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it in a certain way so I don't make anybody mad. And then by that point, you're like, what are we even talking about? Right? And so
totally.
But that's where that uncomfortableness can be corrected, because if you let's talk about your comfortableness in that conversation. I am a very forward person. I do not get uncomfortable by being the first one to do anything. I'm the first person to say this is a waste of time. I'm the first person to say I don't want to be here right now. I will say get to the point, but that's because I've done it so many times in my life. Right? That's the repetition of it where I can do that. I don't feel that feeling of it. So that's where that getting comfortable is, with being uncomfortable, because if you had to defend yourself from oncoming tribes, if you had to, find food for your family every day, if you had to decide whether it was going to be war or peace, if you had to do all those type of things, having an uncomfortable conversation wouldn't be that uncomfortable. You're like, this is probably the easiest thing in my day.
I was thinking, I was trying to figure out how to articulate it a bit more succinctly. How about this? Too much pretext, not enough context.
Yes, I think so. And to what you said about the setting the framework of it, I think the framework is very, very important, because whenever people talk about kind of getting things done in comfortable ways, I do go back to my military service. The first part, which we just talked about, was in the Marines. I can't speak for other military branches, but it was like every day you're like practicing for war, practicing constantly, even if it's just like this repetitious, boring thing. So then you're repetitiously there when if the day were to ever come where you have to do that. The second piece is that the kind of mission, or now we use this word purpose a lot. When you have a unified purpose or unified mission for why you're going to do things, you can kind of like not let your ego speak to the best of you. And then you can be like, all right, well, Mike, Steve, Neal, and Joseph are all on the same team. We all want the same thing. So if I say, Joseph, get to your point, as long as you know that gets you to achieving the goal or the mission faster, better, quicker, then you kind of just go, okay, he's right. But you need that unified mission right now. And I think one of the challenges for a lot of people out there is we have this divisive approach to lots of things, instead of trying to unify people together and kind of working towards the same goal or agenda.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it can be applied to everything. It can be applied to parenting. It can be applied to relationships, which is same page, right? Same page meetings, same page moments, to just say, like, what's the goal here? What, like, zoom out. Where are we going? What are our intentions? Where are we coming from? When we're so in the weeds, we kind of lose sight of it. Look, I got to tell you that this is the perfect time to debut a new segment on the show, because you've been spewing a whole bunch of things, and I don't know whether you've been leading us down the wrong path. You seem to be teasing us with this military background. You're talking about plant medicine, but I want to know, and everyone wants to know, what is the truth and what is the lie? And so instead of, you are the very first person, Neal, instead of 3 fun facts that no one might know about you, 2 of them are going to be the truth, and 1 of them is going to be a lie. And it's time to debut our new segment, 2 Truths and a Lie.
2 truths and a lie, can you guess which is which? Tune and lean and don't you dare miss a pitch. These Joseph Jab not famous, but you'll see. We twist, we turn in search of reality.
I like it. I like the music.
I used actually an AI to create that jingle. 2 truths and a lie. Okay, so are you ready?
Let's do it.
I have no idea what no, I'm kidding. All right. So this is the first one in no particular order, and you have no idea which one is first and which one is not. The first fact about you is that you bartered your way across 5 different countries using only a single Swiss Army knife as your trading asset. Tell us about that story, Neal.
So I've got a lot of global travel underneath my belt. Anyone who's following my social media, sees I've been many places. And I had seen a TV show about this a long time ago, about when they started to like barter for stuff in the United States. And I was like, I bet you could do it even better in Europe, because people are just more friendlier and open to these things. And so it started off in Prague. with my Swiss Army knife. It started as a bet, actually, between a couple friends, and we said, all right, let's start with Swiss Army knife because we're in Prague. Maybe they don't have them here. And sure enough, they thought it was super cool to have a Swiss Army knife. And so we bartered up over and over again, got to the point where we were able to barter for a train ticket, and then went over to Germany after that. And we had gotten a backpack as part of our deals along the way. We actually traded the backpack for meals and to borrow somebody's car. Then that person was hooked on this idea that we were doing this. So then we became a gang of 3 people. And we just kept on trading and trading and trading. And we made it all the way up to a pair of bicycles. And we're able to bike through pieces of London, and just laugh the whole entire way about like how crazy this was, that the vehicles that we were riding on wasn't even ours, and yet we made it all the way from Prague all the way to London, and hadn't spent a dime of our own money other than to buy water along the way and stuff like that.
Well, I will tell you, with your military background, it sounds believable to me, but I'm not the one voting. If you want to vote on this, just go to bit.ly/2T, 1L, 2 truths and 1 lie _ Neal Conlon. And who knows, you might just win a prize or something special. So go ahead and vote. You've got to find out the other 2, either truths, lies, etc. Neal, I will tell you that I don't know if you're familiar with the one red paperclip. Are you familiar with that story?
No, what is?
Well, it's actually not a story at all. I wrote about the one red paperclip probably in my book, Join the Conversation, back in 2007. It was a story, and I forget his name, but he started with one red paperclip and bartered it all the way to a house. So
Wow.
he ended up with a house, and it all began with one red paperclip. So story number 1, well, I say story number 1, these are fun facts. This could be the truth. Here's something else about Neal. He talks about plant medicine, but this is very weird because I don't know how black and white. This is probably under the influence of plant-based medicine, but you've sat in over a dozen ayahuasca ceremonies. Does that mean that you oversaw the ceremonies, or you actually were partaking in them?
It's a mix at this point. So several years ago, I felt when I think the internet started talking about ayahuasca, and I became very intrigued. I had participated in a bunch of other personal development and mindset conferences and stuff like that, and really wasn't getting to the root of what it was. That kept on, I don't know, itching at me. And so I sat in my first ceremony several years ago. I can't do the math because of 2020. I never know how to count it. And interestingly enough, that was the thing that did it for me. With proper facilitation and integration work afterwards, it was really, really beneficial for me. About a year or 2 later, I felt drawn back to it again. I had another itch I had to scratch, so to speak, and came out of one of those ceremonies, and I was like, wow, this is one of the things that I think a lot of people really struggle with, because of the narrative around it. And at that point started to work with a group of people who were facilitators. And ultimately, here we are, fast forward 2023. And I've sat and facilitated in probably a little bit more than a dozen, but a dozen seems like the good, nice round number.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will absolutely come with you bartering across Europe. I'm not sure that I will be plunged into the uncomfortable, abyss of one of your retreats. I am definitely game to join you for an ayahuasca ceremony. But one thing I'm definitely not going to do is join you on and in an Ironman, mainly because I don't know how to ride a bike. I've never been taught. Now I don't know whether it's my two truths and a lie. I'm not the greatest swimmer, and I think I'm done running. But apparently, you're training for an Ironman. You look good, Neal, in this photo.
Hey, I think those might actually be my legs. So I very much appreciate the picture.
Yeah, it may not be the head, but it's definitely the legs. So how many Ironmen have you done?
So the backstory in Ironman is about a year and a half ago, I went to an Ironman as a spectator. And first of all, the first 100 or so people that finish these events are just machines of humans. It is so impressive, their athleticness. They're just amazing. And I thought that was cool. But I was there for the day to watch the entire event. And I started to really pay attention to like the back 1,000 people. And I was enamored by how people come in all shapes and sizes. There are short people, there are fat people, there are super skinny people, there's people that are 6'8". There's just the dedication and the resilience and the capabilities of those people. I was like, you know what? I think I want to understand what that actually is like. And I honestly, to be honest, just did not know what I was getting into when I started to do it. But then I made the commitment. I got a coach. Shout out to Leah Jansen, my endurance coach, and started training January this year. About 6 weeks ago, I completed my first Ironman, my 70.3, which is a 1.5 mile swim, bike 56 miles, and then run a half marathon, 12.1 miles. And in about 3 weeks, I will participate in my first full Ironman, which is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and is a 2.5 mile swim, 116-mile bike, and a marathon, 26.4 miles, which has to be completed in less than 16.5 hours.
I'll tell you, if any of that was even remotely true, I am in awe. I am not worthy. And for those of you that are wondering which is the lie, to me, they all seem completely authentic and believable. You just have to go to the URL that I will put up. And as I said, you may just win something special. Maybe it's something from Neal, maybe it's something from me. This has been Two Truths and a Lie.
Two truths and a lie, can you guess which is which? Tune and lean and don't you dare miss a pitch. It's Joseph Jaff, not famous, but you'll see. We twist, we turn in search of reality.
All right. My lack of resources here have indicated that I apparently cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. But let's see what happens. Now let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Mr. Neal Conlon, I love this whole concept of pressing forward. My friend Brian Fanzo talks about pressing the damn button. I like the concept of pressing forward. I want to know what you think and what you mean by the concept of pressing forward. And then I'll tell you how I internalize it and interpret it. So talk about this, because it's a big part of your positioning.
Yeah, it's a big part of me. The Press Forward as a brand kind of was co-developed with me and an agency several years ago. I took this test called Strength Finders. For anyone who's ever not heard of it, I suggest you take it. It really identifies a lot of the strengths of who you are as a person. And I had this kind of light bulb go off in my head after going through that exercise and realizing, like, that's really who I am. And I love Brian Fanzo, so he's a great guy. Know that guy really, really well. He's an awesome guy. So I can relate very much to this idea of, like, years ago, right? Just to digress for 1 second, for the most part in our world, regardless if it was the right way or the wrong way, our society was all moving in the same direction. It was just structured. We got all of our information from the same encyclopedias. And now, as the world has evolved over time, there's a lot of differences, and there's a lot of different ways to do things. And it becomes challenging when people have to solely believe in themselves, of being capable to do things when the system doesn't support them in the way that it once did. And so I was always kind of this black sheep. I kind of always wanted to do things my way. I was always empowered to kind of do things my way. And I kind of built this muscle of being able to consistently and persistently always be moving forward. I don't really look much backward very much in my life. I look very much at moving forward constantly. And so it is about developing a confidence. It is about being able to communicate what you're trying to do and how you're trying to get to there. It is about always having a plan, but be prepared to pivot because things are changing out in the world. It's about also being kind of true to yourself and what you really want, and knowing that sometimes when you get what you actually are working towards, a goal and achievement, it's not the end. It's probably just going to lead you to something else that you may want afterwards.
It resonates really strongly with me. And the other word, of course, is, the forward implies progress, momentum, keep moving forward, I call it plodding with purpose. But there's also the idea of press, and press your advantage, press home. And even in poker or blackjack, you press your luck, or you press when you feel you have some momentum or some advantage. So I'm also drawn to the word press, not just the button, but actually this idea of pressing, taking your energy, focusing it, and harnessing it on this idea of keep moving, even if you're in the muck, in the mire, in the swamp, in the quagmire. Just keep on doggedly, as you say, consistent and persistent.
Well, totally. And I think I like your use of the word momentum, right? Because momentum is an interesting thing, because I think everybody at some point in their life has felt momentum, right? It could be in your business, it could be in your family life, it could be in your relationships, it could be in your own health. And there's all these pieces that lead up to momentum, right? It's this preparation, right? It's this, you're pressing certain buttons, to use that phrase, and then it leads to actual momentum. And a lot of times that momentum will only last as long as we keep on doing the other things that kind of supported it. And so it is, a lot of coaches out there and a lot of programs that are out there, will imply that you need to fix things, or that you need to get the easy solution to it, and I believe in this much more kind of well-rounded, holistic scenario that, this is where the mental fitness comes into it, especially, and why like press forward in a lot of my languaging is about helping people to recognize their greatness. Because when people feel like they're great, they do great things. When people don't feel great, they do bad things. You will, and I'm very adamant about, like, there's a bunch of things that are agendas that are very near and dear to me, about, like, the suicide rate of U.S. veterans, the suicide rate of men, problems with child trafficking, problems with the economy, problems with underserviced and underprivileged economies. And when people are great, they help people. When people feel great, they share. When people feel great, they give other people opportunities. And so a big piece of the work that I now do in this world is really like reminding people how great they are, so that they can be a great dad and a great mom, so they can be a great advocate for people, so that they can do great things in this world, rather than feeling like they're operating from a place of scarcity and have to like hold everything near and dear to them, because nobody ever wins, when we hold everything close. The real quick example I always give everybody is, if you've ever thrown a barbecue at your house, and let's just say you have a barbecue and there's 10 people coming over, exactly 10, and you don't feel great, but you have to do this barbecue. So maybe your money's not the greatest right now. Maybe your relationship's a little bit rocky. Maybe even the weather's not that great, but you have to do this barbecue. So you only get enough food and enough drink for 10 people. And then when the barbecue's getting close to being over, your neighbor shows up. And then you feel bad because you may or may not have enough food. But you want to be a good neighbor. You want to be helpful. You want to be all those things. And so you scrounge around and you kind of grab a hot dog and you grab a drink and you kind of give them this plate with like just a little bit of food. And you're just kind of like doing the best that you can. And a lot of people do this every single day. They do the best they can every day, but it's based on the resources that they have available to them. Now, my other version of that is if somebody is great and they are excited and they have really great resources and there's a barbecue and they have really good people coming, they really want to, they're going to put out a spread for those people. You want to put out great food for people. You're going to make a little bit extra because people might be hungry. And then what happens? Your neighbor shows up and you got plenty of food to go around and you feel great about the fact that you have enough food to go around. And then your neighbor says, that was great. Let me stay and help you clean up a little bit. And that scenario, as simple as that sounds, I look at that as like how people operate every single day. Because when you do feel great about what you do, when you feel great about the work that you do, when you feel great about your body, when you feel great about your family, when you feel great about all these things, you just want to pass that greatness along.
So I want to talk to you about, and I love the fact that we are now focusing on a word, a very important word, and something that I know spend a lot of time thinking about is the evolution of words, changing their meaning. But I want to go back to this idea of greatness and look at it as feeling great and being great. When you talk about stepping into your greatness, is that something that everyone can do? What about the people that don't feel that they have any greatness at all to step into? Does this apply to everyone, Neal?
I think everybody has greatness within them. And I really like your mention about the words are changing in meaning. For anybody listening to this is a little thing you can do on your own, because I think it's just a really good example of how words are changing this world. If you get an opportunity, go on Google and look up the definition of the word weird. If you look up the word weird, what it really means is being uncanny or having some kind of supernatural power. Yet you can go anywhere on the news, anywhere on social media, and people will, over time, the words just change. But look at that weird person. Look at that weirdo. Look at that person who's not like the rest of us. There you go. Suggesting something supernatural or uncanny, right? A person's destiny, right? So supernatural, unearthly, right? There is a little bit of this word of being eerie, but most of the words that are used in that word are actually positive words. They're representations of people who are doing great things. And so, this idea of greatness, does everybody have greatness in them? Absolutely. Right? You use a very interesting word because it's such a big word. And I've been, actually heavily involved in artificial intelligence since 2009. I would argue that everybody is artificially intelligent, because I will be as intelligent as the knowledge that I have taken on into my life. So if somebody feels like they're not great, they can look at what greatness is for them. They can learn the intelligence of it artificially via someone else, right? That's what artificial intelligence is. It learned from somewhere else, right? But that's what we're doing each and every single day, is learning from that. And so it is, it takes work, like it takes introspection. It takes looking into yourself and being like, all right, well, what does great really mean for me? Because great can mean different things for different people. But holistically or universally, great means, you don't worry about things that are not worrisome. You're not anxious over not getting oat milk in your latte at Starbucks that day. All these little tiny inconsistent things.
So what do you say to me as someone who is an introvert, someone who's been beaten up and beaten down, who is literally, who feels like they're vanilla, they're ignored, they're overlooked, and you're telling me that I'm great. You're telling me, or at least that I can step into my greatness, and I just don't believe. I just don't believe I have it in me. I don't believe that I'm ever going to be, even with your definition of being weird. At best, I'm weird in a strange way. What do you tell me? How do I? What is my first step? What is my next step? How do I get unstuck? How do I move forward?
Right. I love the question, and this was unplanned, so this is a good one.
Everything was unplanned. I have no notes except for the fact that we spent 20 minutes chatting, but yeah, I mean, what's the answer, Osage?
Well, I'll give you a good example, and then I'll answer your question directly. In one of my coaching clients, I work with a large Fortune 500 company, and they have one executive there who is epic when chaos happens. This person thrives in chaos. It is amazing how well, when things go wrong, this person can grab the bull by the horns and make sense of it all for everybody. Then there's another person who is a counterpart who thrives in a good plan of the day, good structure, deliverables every day, bucket lists, doing what has to be done every single day. Now, both of these people don't work well together because they both have what I refer to sometimes as different levels of genius. And the why it's important is because that person who thrives in chaos oftentimes gets frustrated because there's not enough chaos to fix, right? But that is because a lot of the people that she has to work with don't see her level of genius, right? Her level of genius is that in chaotic situations, her weirdness or her superpower is to make sense of it all. When there's not enough chaos around, she will create a little bit of chaos because then she can be in control of the situation and make sense of it. So the first step really is for people who are introverted is to really identify what your level of genius is. You have to go through a little bit of being like, what's my level of, what is the things that I'm really, really good at? And then there has to be this kind of, let's use the term, letting go of the things that you're just not great at. We don't have to be great at everything. Like you are great at doing this show. You have figured out how to pull this all together in a very, very powerful way that is actually very complex.
Still trying.
And you're humble about it. So the first step is really, what's my level of genius? Now, the other piece of it is that you have to also, the second step would be, you have to remove some of the distracting things that are probably taking up a lot of your time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those things can be satiating things. For some people, they're food. For some people, they're video games. For some people, they're just kind of zoning out. They can be drugs. They can be porn. They can be all kinds of different things. And that's where the uncomfortableness comes into it. That's where the dangerous thing comes into it. To be like, you have to kind of just like sit with yourself, get through that uncomfortable phase. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's time out in the woods.
And Neal, sometimes it's taking a bath in a giant 1,500 gallon of Coca-Cola.
What is up, guys? TechRex here. So I want to show you guys something crazy today. This is what you are seeing right now. This is authentic Coca-Cola. It's a 1,500 gallon pool of pure Coke. And what we're going to be doing, we got...
Why am I showing that? You know.
Yes. So this is, I love that that I brought that up and you showed this. So thank you.
You love that you brought that up. I love that you brought it up too.
So this is a good example, right? Like, we're looking to be satiated, right? That's part of the human condition. We're looking to be satisfied. And sometimes when I look at these videos on TikTok or Instagram or other platforms, I look at this one with the pool, and I forget how many views this has, but I think it had tens of thousands of views.
Millions, actually, I think.
And I look at how much time and effort it took these people to fill a pool full of soda, and then I think they dump a bunch of Mentos in it, and then millions of people go, yeah, that thing. But imagine that same person, imagine all those people who all do those type of videos actually put that level of effort or resource into being great, like doing great things for people. We wouldn't have homeless problems. We wouldn't have half the challenges that we think we have if a lot of people, and I have to tell myself this all the time because I do scroll on the internet sometimes and go down my own little rabbit holes. But if you really put that effort, that energy into understanding what your superpower is and then applying it into helping people in some form of way, a lot of these challenging things that we go on in this world just wouldn't exist the way that they do.
I love it. I almost feel like you could probably create an entire coaching day or course. Maybe we'll do it together just based on that video. Because I can see there are buckets or pools of people, right? There, first of all, there are the people that created the video, right? And they took their energy and they created something, and that something went viral, and so you've got those people. Then you've got the people that are watching and wasting their time watching and doom scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Then I suppose you've got people that are watching going, must be nice to be them. I wish it would have happened to me. And they've taken all their energy and they've transferred it into wanting to be like the creators of that video. And so, and then I think, just if you want to kind of bring it all back to, full circle, I always find a quote for my guests, and this is the one that I found for you. Your present circumstances don't determine where you go. They merely determine where you start. And I think about resilience, which is something that you think about. By the way, this quote comes from Nido, I don't even know, Quibane. But it's the final piece of the puzzle, which is, I don't believe I am great versus I don't feel I'm great. And what you're saying is, not only are you, and everyone has it, but if you can find your greatness, your superpower, amazing things can happen. You can change the world. I am not going to sing for you, but it is U2's I still haven't found what I'm looking for. That's the message. Keep trying, keep exploring, keep experimenting. Don't give up. You will find your greatness as long as you have the right coach, mentor, people that love you, that will step into the danger with you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. And another piece of my work that I'm very adamant about is several years ago, I was at some personal development conference. I'll just say some because I don't remember which one it was, but somebody said something on stage and they planted this seed for me, and it took years for it to come back up again. Years. And sometimes that just happens that way, right? We read a book, we glean some nugget, and it just doesn't execute. But what was said to me was, everything in this world happens at the speed of trust. And I took that. So people have sex together based on the fact that they trust each other. People go into business deals because they trust that person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so really a big piece of my own personal work was because of some of the way that I grew up and some of the circumstances I grew up, I just didn't trust the world around me for a long time. And then I realized that it wasn't the world around me. It was that I just didn't trust myself. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I really had to teach myself how to trust myself. And so people will say, Neal, I'm 45 years old, running my first Ironman.
Allegedly.
I do a whole bunch of different things, do ayahuasca ceremonies, go and barter for things out in the world, all these different things.
Well played.
And it all becomes down to like, do I trust myself that this is what I want to do? And it will always serve you well when you trust yourself. And that becomes really, really hard because you have to have some kind of internal conversation with yourself in order for you to trust yourself.
Please look out for Neal Conlon's new book, which will be out soon, sure to be an international bestseller, The Speed of Trust. See how quick I was to write that up. The Speed of Trust. I absolutely love that, Neal. You are the man to deliver this book, this tour de force. When you are not bartering, when you are not running Ironman or facilitating ayahuasca ceremonies. If you want to find out more about Neal, first of all, you can follow him on X. It sounds so weird. Triple X.
It does.
That's another Neal Conlon. Follow him on Instagram, in the club, on the Meta book. The good news is that there is a new coaching cohort starting in October. And if you want to be a part of this journey where he takes you out and dumps you in some remote area, but don't worry, you'll have ayahuasca. You're going to be fine. Find out more at nealconlon.com. And of course, nealconlon.com is also the place where you can find out more about pressing forward. Neal, it just gets better and better every time we hang out together.
Yeah, man.
And I tell you, in that ayahuasca ceremony, when we do it, and we will do it together, we will do it in a giant pool of Coca-Cola, which may be real or imaginary, but the person that will be with us will be Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Cheers, Neal.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.